Stage 1 and Stage 2 engine chill has started. Engine hydraulics at pressure. And Stage 1 fuel is closed out. Falcon 9 is in self-align. Falcon 9 heaters closing out.
Dragon has transitioned to configure for terminal count.
Vehicle tanks pressing for strong back retract.
Strong back retract has started.
Stage 2 RP1 bleed. Stage 1 RP1 bleed. AFTS final setup started. MBAC igniter purges. Pogo bleed.
Dragon has transitioned to terminal count and is on internal power.
Stage 1 LOX load closed out. Vehicle is transitioning to internal power. Stage 2 LOX load is closed out. Propellant fills are complete.
Dragon is in auto idle.
Prime gas closeouts is starting.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
Dragon is in countdown.
FTS is armed for launch.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds.
Stage 1 tanks pressing for flight.
Hey, Monkey Nation, listen, we've been talking about this for a while now, and if you missed out on the last deal where you got $200 worth of free gear, check out what we've got going on right now. This is over at monkeyworksprep.com. You'll get a 3-month kit, and you'll save $200 right now, and that will not last forever, but for every 3-month kit you buy, you get $200 off. That's a current special that's going, and remember, monkeyworksprep.com. Jump over there and get it now and get that food that you need to get you and your family through the crisis that is coming. It will not last forever. I'm telling you, when you need it, it's going to be hard to get. So don't wait. All right. That is monkeyworksprep.com. And you will be thankful that you did this. God bless. Mic check. Mic check. All right, we got it fixed. Sorry about that, folks. That was a quick technical glitch. I got it figured out. For some reason, my mic was disconnected, and so disregard the black space there for a minute. All right, so let's get over here. If you would, hit that like, subscribe, and bell for notification. And, man, it never fails. There's always some type of technical glitch. It's either, just nothing working at all, or the dog's barking, whatever it may be. But, hey, it is Friday. And it is Good Friday, so keep that in mind as you get through the day, the sacrifices that were made for you through the blood of Jesus that basically redeemed you so that the fight and the battle that we are witnessing right now has already been won. So just remember that, okay? Faith over fear as we get into this. So let's jump over here to our mini board. And we are sitting at, let me back up a little bit. I decided to go with the watch list as it is live this morning for the main reason because we've got a ton of survey aircraft up here. We're going to look at live, real time. Military aircraft wise, we're sitting at around 215 roughly. It's a little bit of a light day, but we're going to look at this discreetly this morning. So let me do this. I'm going to pull this up and then we'll get over to this side of it. Notice these are different Sherwood aircraft, Prairie Air Service. These guys are doing surveys in these general areas. This one's in New Mexico, this one in Kansas. But this is the main concentration, and this is the one we need to really, really focus on as I hit the wrong button. There we go. Get rid of that. Because this kind of tells the story, what is going on. Remember, we've had over 500 survey flights in the last 30 days. If we count today, we've got 20 aircraft up right now, live, looking all over the Northeast. I don't think this is rail specific. I think they were looking at the rails, but this seems to be more in depth than what we originally thought. And so notice you've got it out. This is kind of over the Biden area, right? This is in the general stomping grounds. Of course, he flies up into here and all over the place. But this is New Jersey. And the ones that we've been watching, and I'll show you here the last 3 days, have been over, and when I say the Biden area, have been over this general populace for the most part. It's really, really crazy. But again, these are surveys. These are survey aircraft. They're not high altitude. You can see these. We just take a look at this one's at 12,000 feet. This one is at 12,975. Let me see what this one is, 12,075. So these are all around 12,000 feet up and gathering data. Now, the stuff that they're looking at, they're not doing man-in-the-middle dirt box kind of thing. What they're doing are things like LiDAR or like the camera images that are basically grabbing images of the ground better than probably what Google has in terms of current data, real data. And if it's LiDAR, which I think it is, it's getting 3D images of the data as it goes over. So it's getting some really, really in-depth stuff. But what they are looking at is beyond, I mean, I don't really understand exactly what it is. Some of these you can see the long traces. Some of these are just getting started on the traces. But that's 20 survey aircraft up right now over Detroit, as you can see. There's a big concentration over Indiana, Ohio, and Illinois up near Chicago. All right. So that is just, again, data point for you. But let's move on. Let's get over here to our watch list real fast. And you'll see this is where we were about an hour and a half ago. A lot of other aircraft we're going to be looking at. And I'm going to when I go back to this, I'm going to show you one that looks like we got some weather mod going on. You got a Q9 headed off over the water on the West Coast. We've got several intelligence gathering aircraft that are up right now. We'll look closer at those as well as part of our normal routine look. And then you get down, that's going to be Homeland Security down over the southern Florida, out over the water. And then let me get a little in further and then get a little further north. And then this one here looks to be NOAA. So that's going to be one of your weather birds. And then we get up here again. We just looked at all of this. Just insane the amount of surveys going on in the north and the northeast. And as they just kind of migrate to the left now, this is there's definitely something up, folks. There's no doubt about that. Okay. Then we got our normal R-135, C-135s rolling out of Lincoln, Nebraska. And let's get over to Europe, see what's going on there. Now, not too much. We do have a couple. Looks like we've got one of our Brio 66 running some routes there to the right of Moldova. Remember, Brio 66 it's a third-party contractor. That's not a DoD asset other than being chartered or contracted, but it's a reconnaissance bird with some highly intelligent equipment on it. And then these others, those are just going to be your MIL intel balloons, German Air Force, the normal stuff. There's 4 of those bad dudes that are up on a regular basis, okay? All right, let's get over to the heavies, which is not too active today. There are some big moves, it looks like. Remember those teal-looking lines? It's going to be a C-17. And then you get into the little kind of the pink looking ones. Those are going to be A400s. The ones that are more red are going to be C5. So these are transports. All right. So these are going to be, you can see just kind of moving around there to the south of Kaliningrad. Looks like they're dropping some stuff off. That's an A400. More than likely, it's going to be a British A400. And then you can see a lot of stuff going on there just to the right side of Luxembourg. Very, very busy in terms of that general area. And then we've got this trace that's going to run across the United States, across the Atlantic to the United States. Again, C-130s are a little lighter, C-17s off the eastern seaboard. It looks like that is the main concentration. A couple things there coming out of the port location in South Carolina. And then disregard the spike. Those down in Florida, those are southern Florida C-130s, probably going to be Coast Guard related. And then those spikes right there, like I said, that's going to be the Egyptian bird. And that really, for some reason, every time it enters our airspace, that's it right there. It throws these crazy spikes up like 80,000 feet or something. So disregard that one. And then we've got the Brits leaving Louisiana. Okay. Now, over to the air refueler side of the house, very, very active and busy in the center of the United States today. You could see a couple tracks or traces headed down towards the Texas border. And then as you get out over Tennessee, we've got a little marshalling pattern going on there. Looks like we've got several air refuelers that have popped up from that base location. And then one down over New Orleans, kind of out towards the water. One up over Camp David. That's where Flashbang is today. Well, yeah, today, tomorrow, and Sunday, which is another interesting topic. And, of course, the Northeast. We keep seeing them in the Northeast. It's kind of crazy. It's probably up over Obama's residence, if I had to guess. And then, of course, we've got this one over Poland. Just notice it is just right to the southern border side of Kaliningrad. Again, Kaliningrad, that area is Russia, all right? And it's a major port for Russia and how they get stuff in and out of that Baltic area. Okay, then we've got one, it looks like one air refueler coming out of what looks to be UAE, all right? Okay, now let's get over the R-135s. We'll start here in the United States. Just notice that we've got one south of Tucson. Then we get a little further north. We've got that one just to the southern side of Canada, right there in that same location. We always see the drones going just south of Winnipeg. And then let's get over to Europe. Looks like we've got one that's transitioned across the drink. So maybe we are adding another one or one's coming home. Hard to tell. But just notice that that one is to the left side of Moldova. That's the same place. Looking at Crimea, guaranteed, which is Russia. And we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly. But more than likely, that is what they're looking at. And it's the same location as the civilian contracted plane. And then we've got a little bit of work over the Persian Gulf, probably tied to Iran. As always, we're looking into that country and the assets that are in the region there. And then we had that little southern side of Syria, which is a hot zone right now. And then this, of course, off of the Sea of Japan. Again, R-135s, these guys are doing reconnaissance work and a very detailed data that they are grabbing. Okay, over to the intelligence aircraft. Let's take a quick gander. We've got what looks to be a flurry of activity to the southern side of Tucson. Remember, we just saw an R-135 head down there as well, which tells me there may be some activity going on to the southern border that they are very concerned about and getting eyes on. And then, of course, we see some transitions across the United States. Again, intelligence aircraft. These are going to be, most of these are smaller little BE-20s or the like. Okay. And I don't see anything down in Central or South America, at least from that standpoint. So that's good. We did have a lot of activity with Panama there. And then let's get up to the northern side of the Baltic Sea, and you'll see we've got this activity headed out over the water. Up in Latvia, looking very closely at Belarus, Kaliningrad, and we'll talk a little more about Belarus here in just a few minutes, but there's some interesting data going on with that as well that we don't want to ignore, okay? It doesn't look like we've got anything going on Middle East-wise from the Intel aircraft today. We did have a flurry of stuff happening in the last several SITREPs involving Israel. Okay, so there's your Sea of Japan. Again, these are going to be sub-hunters now. We've transitioned over. These are going to be looking for, these will be your P3s, Navy P8s. And then notice we had one coming in from Hawaii. It looks like back and forth, round-robin trip to Hawaii out of Southern California. And then that's, we get up here towards Portland and Seattle, and just notice that we've got some activity off the west coast there, off the water. It looks right on the border. And then we've got a lot of work going on near the Chesapeake off of Virginia Beach, where that is another location we've seen a lot of drone activity. We've got a flurry of launches out of Jacksonville, which is kind of the normal. Some stuff over the Gulf of Mexico, the stuff off of Cape Canaveral off the East Coast. Kind of the normal locations we've been seeing the P8s. Now we're going to get over to the UK and Europe, and you'll notice that we've got a flurry of activity going on north of Glasgow, Scotland, and up into kind of the North Sea, transitioning over. So that's, I think, all we have from that standpoint. Well, wait, we do have some down near Malta, which has been a little bit of interesting stuff going on there. We don't see the normal, and some things there near Constanta, over Greece, over that particular area, again, over Malta. But we don't see what we have been seeing, and that is the drone activity. I will tell you, I went to look for the drone stuff today and was really struggling to find much at all that was, near the Black Sea or near Malta that we normally see them. So it looks like since the one got knocked down, they have been a little less, I don't know, I would say obvious, or, maybe they killed the transponders and they're going in quietly now. I don't know, but it's a very interesting data point, that's for sure. So, okay, this one right here, this TB20 is owned and operated by a company. Well, this says Operator Mark Inc. I don't know how accurate that was. It actually said weather something here just a minute ago. So it looks like the name on that one, Mark Inc., has changed. But that is one of our weather birds that's over Florida right now. Just FYI. Okay. All right, let's break away from that aspect of it, and let's get into the news cycle, what we've got going on. Now, we're going to start just by looking at volcanic activity. We haven't looked at this in quite some time, but just notice that this is ash. And the reason that we talk about this is because it actually involves pilots. And these are ash alerts that are given so that pilots don't fly through this. Volcanic ash is very, very gritty, and it will tear up an engine, a jet engine, if it is inducted into the front of it. And it will basically, it also can cause an aircraft to basically just have what they call a flame out, where they just lose engines and they can crash. So you have to be really careful. But notice these coming out of Russia, big, giant ash clouds. So these two are really firing. Notice it's halfway over the Pacific. This is Hawaii down here. That stuff with a jet stream could easily end up out over here, over the United States. Very, very fine, gritty stuff. So it might change your sunset or something like that. Don't think it's anything to worry about in terms of breathing in the United States, but it definitely could make it here. So, okay, then we've got our regular one down in Japan, one down. Ducano looks to be firing. You can see the little ash alert here to the southern side. Then we back up away from that, and we get over here to Central and South America, as well as Mexico. This one's firing. You can see the ash alert here to the southern side. Again, southern side of everything. They all seem to be southern side ash alerts. So the one in Colombia, then we even get down here into Peru, in north of Bolivia, southern Peru, and we've got this one firing also. So the volcanic activity is doing pretty well today. All right, so let's do this. We're going to look at the weather side of the house because that's going to give us our TFRs. Just notice that we got the slop running across the eastern seaboard, coming across Texas, Louisiana, as we kind of get into it. The biggest takeaway for today is this right here. Flashbang is actually headed to Camp David. He's there for 3 days. Now, there is talk, and it's a rumor, but I will tell you, based on the flight traffic and the military assets being placed into Europe right now, I've been hearing talk of a spring initiative in Ukraine by NATO. If that is the case, then it would basically really validate what we've been watching over the last several weeks, month, maybe month and a half, of an uptick in assets being sent over to the region. Now, it could also explain why this guy is headed to his bunker for 3 days. Okay. So, all right, well, let's do this. Let's jump over here to Flashbang's schedule today. And that is exactly what it looks like. Little Joey. All right, this is going to be Friday. Again, it looks like he is really not up to anything. He is at Camp David and has no public events scheduled. So we will leave it at that, and let's get into the news. Take a look at the dollar. This is one thing I've been actually watching closely because of the positioning that's going on with Saudi, with Russia, with China, etc. What it looks to me, every time I watch this, I've seen some really crazy dips that'll drop way down, and then you'll see almost looks like they are putting money in to make it bounce back up, to just keep it from collapsing or, kind of putting more air in the balloon. We've seen it happen with the stock markets in the past, where it will start to tank and then the Fed will come in and just pump a whole bunch of money into it to keep it up so that it does not happen. And it looks like this is, again, looks to be manipulated. If we get in over the last, say, let's go look at it from a month perspective, you can see it is definitely trending downward. If we get into the last 5 days, it has done a little bit of a dip and it's kind of leveled out at 102, but it's definitely down compared to where it was. So we'll keep our eye on that because that's critical to our economy. If that bad dude goes down below $1, there is no telling what could happen. All right. Okay. Let's get over to the other piece of this. Manufacturing slump continues for the 5th straight month. They are saying that this slump is actually the lowest that they've seen on record since May 2020, and when it registered at 43.5%. But this is all of these different indexes. It's what they call the Supply Management ISM, Institute for Supply Management Index, that reports on this. And the manufacturing activity actually fell to a 3-year low, like we just said, haven't been seen since 2020. So all of the indicators are that our economy is slowing. And these are kind of the forward-looking side of the house. When this starts to slump, you start to see the layoffs from several of the major supply chain operators like Amazon, where they start to lay off a ton of people. That's an indicator that the economy is starting to slow at a pretty good pace now. All right, here's another one for you, another indicator. Small businesses file for bankruptcy at a record pace, surpassing the COVID crash. That's not good. And so remember, if the small businesses go away, our economy is toast. And everybody kind of knows that. It's been, very well announced for quite some time. And you usually see a lot of incentives going out to try and keep small businesses going because that is kind of the lifeblood of our country. And so when you start to see this, again, really bad, bad for our country, bad for our economy. All right. Now, this is a little humor for you for this beautiful Friday. Room service. This is the U.S. Special Forces nabbed the wrong guest in a mock hotel raid. So it looks like these guys were on a STO, standard training operation, when they burst into a hotel and grabbed a Delta Airlines pilot in his 30s who was handcuffed and questioned in the shower of his Boston hotel for nearly an hour. And then they realized this dude doesn't really understand what we're doing and that we've got the wrong guy for our training op. So anyway, that would be a heck of a way to wake up. So, all right, let's move on. Let's get over to the NOTAMs. We talked about the TFR up here next or north of the Senior Living Center and headed up to Camp David. That's going to be going on through Sunday. And everything else looks to be kind of quieted down for the weekend. See our usual stuff. Most of these are either military ops, military exercises. We'll keep a close eye on this area where all the surveys are going on, especially in the DC metro area, because that would be an indicator that something is going on up there that is probably not good. So let's do this. We're also going to transition over to this side. This is a TFR off of Morocco, or actually it's a mil op exercise. They're working on a communications deal with the satellites. You may note that we just had a similar exercise off of the southern coast of California where our U.S. military was actually working on communications between service branches. That has since been over and ended, I guess, yesterday or day before yesterday. And so anyway, this is where we are. This is going to be SATCOM stuff. And it looks like we've got a little bit of exercises going off the coast of France down to the southern side of Denmark. This is our normal hot zone, as always. And we'll be looking at that closer here in just a minute. And of course, this stuff right here, there's a lot going on in Israel right now. We're going to look deeper into that as well. It's that time of year, I guess. All right. Star Wars map. Let this thing marinate for a second. As you can see, we're getting peppered as always. There is definitely an uptick in the amount of cyber attack activity coming into the United States. So we'll watch that and continue to watch it. But you guys know that already because you get the death spin on your stuff or your internet goes out. Okay. Now this one I think is a very interesting data point. In fact, that we need to really pay close attention to this because it indicates that Russia and their posture and stance has changed. It says here, and this is coming from Russia, the new Cold War is over. We are now in a hot conflict with the United States. Notice they did not say NATO. This is us, okay? And this is probably your biggest takeaway right here. This is from just hours after Russia announced it had deployed nuclear-capable missiles to the border of NATO in Belarus. Again, Russia is making moves with their nukes. We talked about that was going to happen. They were training troops on the ground in Belarus. But this is a big move. And it is also, notice here as well, they are retrofitting the Belarusian jets with the equipment to carry and drop nuclear bombs. I'm telling you, everybody pushes back on the fact they say, well, Russia's really not going to go nuclear. This is what our U.S. government says. They'll never go nuclear. It's not going to happen. They're not going to go to that. But I will tell you, everything that we have been reporting on over the last 6 months, Russia has talked nukes over and over and over. And they haven't just said it, but they're actually doing it. And that's your key takeaway. The fact that they are starting to deploy nukes into Belarus. We know they've got them in Kaliningrad. We know they've got them on their submarines. So, and Putin is touting his nukes on a regular basis. So that tells you that he means business. And every time he talks about it, like I said, we can go back to the Bible. You can crack open Ezekiel, go to Ezekiel 38, and do note that there is mention of Russia, Turkey, Iran, the other Baltic states that are in the region, all coming against Israel. There is no mention of the United States. And we should note that because that tells you that Russia is still here in order to do that. So when he keeps talking about nukes, I think we should be taking them seriously. Clearly, they're not reading their Bibles in the White House. All right. U.S. Army opens a facility hosting combat-ready military equipment in Poland. We saw this coming the other day. There was a big announcement. This kind of gives us some numbers of what we're looking at. But keep in mind, it says here that you got 5,000 U.S. Army personnel at that base location, 87 Abrams tanks, 152 Bradleys, 18 Mike 109s, 155 Mike howitzers, and 45 Mike 113 armored personnel carriers. So they really a total of, I guess, 2,700 military pieces, all inclusive. This is something to pay attention to. This location where they have located is to the western side of Warsaw. So it's kind of more in the center. If we go over to our map again, let me find, here we go. This will give us a good location. Get into Poland. This is Warsaw here. It is over here. So it's probably right here where this red stuff is. Okay, more than likely. Let me just see. Yeah, temporary activation, mill activity, flights of unmanned aircraft. But yeah, probably right in here would be the location, or somewhere in here, maybe here. All right. I know it's in that zone. That's all I'm going to tell you. So without getting too deep, that's actually the name of the base. I think this is it. So, but it gives you a general idea. Reminder too, the aircraft and the stuff that we're tracking coming in is not here. It's not in this region. It's down here. Okay. So that is, again, we just have to keep tabs on this one, all right? Okay. Now, we talked about the facility. Let's get over to this piece of it. Ukraine is ready to give up Crimea. You may remember just a couple weeks ago, Zelensky was touting that they were not going to give it up, that they were about to take it back, and that they felt like they had the opportunity to do so. That was around the same time he also said we're out of artillery or ammunition. Sorry, I think that was the word. We're out of ammunition. So this is, I think we expect this, right? They're not going to take Crimea. That is a stronghold for Russia. In fact, Russia, when they do launch their attack, Crimea will be a key place that it will come from when they head north, as well as Belarus and to the right-hand side. Okay, let's transition now over to what is going on with Israel. So Hamas has fired massive rocket barrage from Lebanon into Israel. That is coming from the north side. We'll look at the map here in just a second. And then if you get over here to the other piece of the news, the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, strikes Hamas targets in Gaza and Lebanon, as over 44 rockets are fired into Israel. So they're getting it from the north and the south. As you can see, some of the blasts taking place. These are coming, for the most part, from F-35s. And the Israeli Air Force is actually the ones taking these out. But you can see this one is a picture of one of the launchers and what it looks like. You can see it's just a little cart you'd pull behind anything. But they park these in a field or grass fields. They've got them all wired, and then they just basically hit the button, and everybody runs. There's nobody there after the fact. They're not standing around this wondering where it hit. They launch it, and then they boogie, and then the IDF or the Israeli Air Force basically blows this whole area out of the water. And if there's a poor farmer that is in the region and they did this on his farmland, then he usually loses about everything he has because they light it up. So this is how they always do. They're cowards. They'll launch their stuff and then they'll get out and hide, and then that area gets lit up. So if we look at the map, let's get over here. I've got a little bit of a slideshow we can look at when it comes to this, and you will see that this is down in Gaza. This is the location, one of the locations that it started and has taken place just in the last 24 hours. And then if we get over here to the next side, we should have, well, let me back that up. Let's hit pause. This is going to be a total map. So if you get down to the southern side, that's going to be Gaza. To the northern side is going to be Lebanon. And those are the two areas. Now, this is a posting from the IDF who said they are calling up reserves and they are going hot. And so, again, this is heated. This is going to be up in the Lebanon area, just north of the border, south of the border. You can see a lot of strikes and a lot of inbound alerts to the southern side into Israel. But again, IDF is taking out those positions. And so that is where we are today. We'll just keep an eye on it, but it's not good. Definitely not good. Okay, back over here to our other news piece. As we look at France, they have actually over 500,000 protests against Macron and his government. This all comes because there was a pension reform in Paris or in France. And Paris is where all the activity is going on. But the pension reform, Macron basically decided he was going to extend the retirement date. Remember, these folks, that the way their system works over there, when he extends it, they didn't like it. And so this is not good. It's kind of like if you would think Social Security, if they said, hey, you can't draw from it at 62 anymore, you have to be 70. Most of us, you're not going to, they wouldn't really have to pay out very long, because the average shelf life on an American after he retires is not. Yeah, it's like 2 years. So, yeah. So that's really what's going on here. It's a money deal, as always. Okay. We're going to take a look at the ships. I did forget. I meant to show the activity for the surveys. I showed you the live view. I showed you what was going on. But let me back up for 1 second. I'm going to go backwards here for a minute. As we look at this aspect of it, these are going to be the last 3 days. Remember, we just had a lot of weather rolling through, so it's a little lighter. But there were 27 flights that took place. And you can see these that we're seeing are not being shown. So when we showed the live thing today, that's not capturing this. This is the last 3 days. And you can see this is what I was saying over the Biden area. Just notice there is a lot of activity in this general area. And let me see what I can do to thin this out so you can really see the lines of where they're going and how this survey takes place. Notice the different altitude and elevations. Most of these are around 12,000 feet. That one looks like it's bounced up to about 15,000 there in the green. But this is over, you're talking Washington, D.C. Now, in my opinion, the reason you're seeing that is because I think they are surveying in case we have some type of unrest here in the United States. And that is going to be the big concentration. Why? Because that is where most of the populace of the United States lives. And that, when you start talking about the White House, that's going to be a main focal point area, right? They're going to probably lock that whole area down very quickly. All right, now we're over here to U.S. vessels. I know I'm bouncing around on you a little bit, but this, just to give you a general idea, notice this is Los Angeles, Long Beach, all right? These are ships that are out in the general area. It's a U.S. warship right there. This is a Coast Guard, another U.S. vessel. Notice the direction that these seem to be headed back into the port area. And then we get closer to the ports. You can see we've got a lot of things here in to the interior side. This is a naval port, but very active out here off of the western coast. Haven't seen that in quite some time. And we get over here to the East Coast. Just notice you've got a lot of activity down here south. This is where we saw the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, Homeland Security flying out in the same general area. So it looks like we've got a lot of effort going on here to keep people from getting into our country, coming between Cuba and here. So that would make sense to see that there. East Coast, everything seems to be kind of in port right now. There's a lot of different mixes in here. These are not all just military. A lot of these, what we see, are Coast Guard, although there are some U.S. military vessels mixed in there, but most of these are Coast Guard. All right. Then we get over to Europe, and you can see very active out here in terms of what we can get eyes on. Now, for a little while there, remember I was telling you it was actually chock full out here in the North Sea. That seems to be a little less active, but what is active is along the coastlines and the shores. These are all people that are parked in ports, but you'll notice that we do have more activity with ships moving around the general areas. Kaliningrad, again, right here, this is a Russian port, and that is a Soviet boat, or SB-123. Let's see what we have here. That's looks like a Lithuanian warship, a Latvia warship. So there's more activity. Swedish warship on patrol in terms of NATO, etc. All right. Now, I do know we were tracking at one point some very, I guess, some carrier-based groups that were rolling into this area. We're not seeing them. So most of them you're not going to see. They don't really transmit where they are. At least the United States stuff doesn't that often. Right. Let's get into the base locations. We're going to start out over here with the camber flights. And I'm going to point out, got a couple things. Notice the amount of flights in the air. This is higher than I've ever seen, but it's not as high. Let's go look at this for a minute. I captured this about 2 hours ago. These are the camber flights that were in the air 2 hours ago, which is remarkable. I've never seen this many camber flights up at one point. That is probably a dozen, roughly. And then also the other piece too, because these have since landed, notice the amount of the Russian aircraft that are up. Haven't seen that in quite some time. 6 of them. Normally it's onesie twosies. So that is just, again, it's a data point for you, but very, very active right now. Very active. So we get back over to the live board from the camber perspective, and you can see we've got a lot of transitions going on, mostly into Europe, a little bit down in the Middle East. That right there, pay attention to, that's Jordan. Amman, Jordan. Remember, we are training 5,000 Palestinians. That's folks that are in here. Basically, they're Palestinian troops. Why? I don't know. But James and I talked about this yesterday in our show. This, it's a little bit of a concern. Remember, too, and James brought this up yesterday, and if you don't follow James Cadiz, wealth of information, we do a show every Thursday at 1 o'clock Central Time. But yesterday we were talking about this. Jordan controls the Temple Mount. And so when they start, you talk about the United States training Palestinians, Palestinian troops, 5,000 of them, that tells you they are getting ready to take some type of command and control inside the old, what we would call ancient Samaria. Today they call it the West Bank in this general area. So pay attention to that. That's a really big thing, especially if you see the IDF and reserve starting to get activated. So, all right, back over here to Biggs. Again, this is Biggs Army Airfield. We've got one coming inbound from Panama City, Florida. That's a 757-200 National Cargo. And then let's go down a little bit further. It looks like that one's going to Rhode Island from there. Let's see if we got anything else. We got these spas. Now, pay attention to the smaller aircraft. Let me go back over here because sometimes they sneak in on us. These little 737 aircraft, notice this Learjet. That's going to be one of your agency contractor birds. That's coming out of Cartersville. That's their home base operations. But what that tells you is they're flying directly into Biggs to pick somebody up and take them elsewhere. So we're going to look at that and see where it went from here. But this is what we're looking for. You may remember we had a surge of these smaller aircraft that came in and out. I was thinking maybe it was tied to immigration. They were going all over the United States, coast to coast, around the same time that we got information that the U.S. government was putting in a very large contract for what they call the heat vest. And these heat vests allow someone to carry 8 magazines, and those would be AR-15 platform size magazine inside this heat vest. Okay. And then you could put a jacket over it. You could conceal carry it, or you could carry it on the outside. But that was just a data point that came in around the same time we saw all of these things happening. So don't lose sight of that. We'll continue to watch these flights, but this seems to be the processing base. And again, I don't know if it was tied to immigration or not, but look, I mean, you've got this one coming in from Hawaii. This is not really what I would consider a wide body. It's a 757-200. 777, yes. But the 757's kind of narrow. They do hold a lot of people, but okay. Now we go back to the main board here. Let's see where this one came in from the agency, the CIA. It looks like, I say the CIA, it may not have been CIA. That just slipped up. I didn't mean to say that. But where did you go? It's interesting. Here's where I find it very interesting. When they take the flight off the board, notice it doesn't show the inbound, doesn't show the outbound. All right. Now we can go over here. We can probably find it as we get down into, hasn't been removed yet. So it went to San Antonio from there. But that I always find just interesting because it is, you're talking today. It just, let's see. Well, no, it says Thursday at 9 a.m. yesterday. Okay. Well, it was on there this morning when I looked at it over here on the departure board. But we do see that happen a lot at the spa down in Guantanamo Bay where the flights just get wiped. You can't see them anymore. But yeah, it was on here, and then so were these, and all of a sudden it's gone. Same thing with here. It just disappeared off the arrival board. It's still on the long board, but not the short boards. Okay. And then, of course, that spa flight looks to be headed, again, this is headed to Bedford, Massachusetts. It comes in from Tucson, and then it rolls right out. I don't see the arrival, so that came in yesterday. Probably, could be troops, but they could be moving immigrants out and up to that location. Remember, Biggs Army Airfield, if you've been following me for a while, that is a major, massive immigrant camp. Massive. They hold like 15,000 people there. Big, big white tents still there. And they are also in Tucson, Arizona. However, Sierra Pacific is also based out of Tucson. So it's hard to correlate the two in terms of travel back and forth on who's on it. Okay. All right. Now we get over here. This is Fort Dix, and I'm not seeing we've got a reach. And here we go. Air Transport International coming in from Baltimore, Washington. And then, of course, I don't see it. It looks like it's just landing, not going out. So, okay. And then over here to the other side, you can hear my Krauts are going crazy again at the door. I will tell you that will change as soon as we relocate to our new location. This won't happen again. So this is a temporary issue. Okay. Over here to Dover, as you can see, looks like we've got Coletta. Some big boys coming in. That's going to be a JFK arrival coming inbound from JFK. Then we've got this also Atlas Air. So 2 747-400s coming into Dover. And then we've got a FedEx MD-11 coming in from Memphis. That's going to be empty more than likely because this is home base operations. And of course, leaving outbound, we've got that one headed to Ramstein. The other is destination unknown. And the reach, looks like that's headed to Pine Mountain, Georgia. FedEx is headed to Ramstein. So that's probably carrying a boatload of ammunition, artillery, whatever it may be, something big. It's an MD-11. All right. Then we get over to this piece. This is actually GTI. It's going to be Atlas Air. This is coming from Dover. This is going to Ramstein. We just talked about that. This one's landing at Terra Sierra. That's going to be that little island off of Portugal in the Atlantic. That's a camber flight. That's where it's headed to. And then those two Atlas Airs that are coming inbound are leaving. headed back to Baltimore, and this one's headed to Hong Kong. And we go down a little further. We got the camber there. That may be troop related, but that is a wide body, big one, 747-400. It's on the docket. No telling where it's headed. And then, of course, this one's still rolling inbound. Over to RZE. Now, this is Poland. This is that southern eastern side of Poland that's down near the border. If we look at it on the map, you can see this is actually the Ukraine border. This is RZE. If we back it up, just to give you kind of a general feel, Warsaw is going to be probably here, and then the U.S. base is over here on this side. Okay, let's drop down and see what we've got. Inbound coming, camber flights. That's going to be Royal Air Transport. Camber flight, camber flight, camber flight, another camber flight, and another camber flight. So we've got, what, 6 plus the Royal, 7 roughly camber flights coming in. That tells you you've got more equipment depending on what it is. These 747s coming in from Anchorage, that's probably artillery, etc. But these smaller ones, could be troops coming in from Nuremberg, probably. So again, more Anchorage. We see that a lot. Flights coming all the way across the drink from Anchorage, Alaska. It's because they're reallocating resources. Stuff that they've sent over to Asia, they're bringing it back over to Europe. So, okay. And then the departure side, you can see more camber flights rolling out. Atlas Air headed out. Kaleta Air, Atlas Air, Kaleta. That one's probably troops. This one's going to Seoul, Korea. Same here, Seoul, Korea. So very busy. Look at all these are a lot of Kaleta. Kaleta's getting a lot of business here right now. Be a shareholder at Kaleta, you're probably making hand over fist this year. A lot of activity. Same thing with Atlas Air. Very, very busy and active. All right, National Cargo, you'll see we've got one coming out of Charlotte and one headed out of Okinawa. This one looks to be headed to Alaska. This one seems to be headed down south and maybe into the Philippines. Maybe? I don't know. Okay. Carrying troops more than likely, both of those. And then this is Western Global. Looks like they've got a flight coming out of Anchorage to Huntsville, Alabama. Right? That could be either a rotation or they're actually carrying some stuff. Looking at the aircraft, it's an MD-11. It could be either way on that. Okay, Omni coming out of Guam, headed into Japan. And then Anderson, let's see, that one's headed to Hawaii. So we've got them going in 2 directions here. Troop carriers right there. More than likely. All right, let's look at the Royals. We've got 5 aircraft on the board right now. They are kind of all over the place. You can see in and out of Cyprus. And it looks like we've got normal European stuff, Poland, down to the deep end. That's actually coming out of Cyprus right here. This one is inbound. It looks like we've got an A400 coming out of Alexandria headed back here. It's up here at the top. And then we've got 2 coming out of the United States, Alexandria. Well, that one's interesting. Okay. Now that there is a military base there, but there's also a 72-hour holding facility for people being sent out of the country. That is also a prison, right? So, okay. Let's keep on going. Let's get over to this side. This is your Ruskies. This is your live map. Again, we looked at the Ruskies a minute ago, had 6 of them up. This is all that's left. Looks like this one's coming out of Turkey, headed back in. Probably it's on the descent. It's on final approach. It's at 3,200 feet, 230 miles an hour. It looks to be landing in Moscow. All right. I think that covers it, folks. We are, again, I think what we are seeing would be an indicator that there could be a spring offensive in Ukraine, and it could be an engagement of NATO. So if that is the case, we are very close to this thing going hot. So we'll continue to watch it, but there are a ton of equipment and troops headed into Europe right now, which is a pretty good indicator that the rumors we're hearing about a spring offensive could very well be true. So, all right, listen, that's it. I hope you guys have a blessed weekend. Enjoy that Easter Sunday. Remember what it's all about, and we will see you on the other side. Keep that powder dry and stay frosty. We'll talk soon. God bless. Monkey out. Check out the latest gear and products at MonkeyWorks US.